Hey guys, it's Jake here with eTrailer. Today we have a 2023 Ford F-150 and we're going to be taking a look at, and I'm going to show you how to install the Air Lift LoadLifter 5000 air helper springs. Now before we jump into too many of the details about these airbags, let's go ahead and look at some before footage of hooking up a dump trailer to the back of our truck to see what that trailer does to this truck. You can obviously see we have a lift on our truck here, so the suspension in the back is quite a bit softer. They are adjustable shocks, but they have them adjusted softer so that it's a more comfortable ride. As you can see here, we've got a significant amount of drop without our airbags installed. You can see we're way high in the front, and this truck, before I even put this trailer on it, had a little bit of drop in the back just because they have it leveled out perfectly. The back does sit just slightly lower than the front. So that already gives us a disadvantage. Usually you have that factory rake to help you in order to level out once you put a load on. And the other thing I'd like to point out too is that this trailer is unloaded. So that just shows you how soft the suspension is on this. They obviously added a lift kit to this truck, but this is a huge problem. So we'll get our airbags installed and take a look at it after that. Now, unfortunately, we are not able to hook up to that same trailer again. By the time we got these airbags finished, Ian, one of our installers, had to start on that trailer. We're doing a complete rebuild underneath of it. So it's actually up on jacks right now, so we can't hook up to it. But I can tell you that this truck, if we were to hook back up to it, you can set the height of this truck at whatever height that you want, as long as the airbags will reach it. But you don't necessarily always want to come back up to the factory ride height on your truck. You want a little bit of sag so that the airbag still has some squish to it. But I can tell you with these airbags, that trailer would have been no problem. These airbags are going to have a max load carrying capacity of 5,000 pounds. Now, obviously this is on an F-150, so we're not going to get anywhere close to that, but it just goes to show you how safe you are and how strong the bags are. We're going to have a max PSI rating of 100 pounds. You want to be sure not to exceed that. And a minimum PSI rating of 5 PSI. You will want to always leave 5 PSI in these bags, and that is so that they stay inflated, so that whenever you go over a bump or something, they don't suction in, and so that if you carry a light load in the back, if you're throwing some luggage or something back there, you don't have to add air for those lighter loads that usually wouldn't cause sag in the back end of your truck, but it will help to keep the shape of that airbag when you are throwing those lighter loads in there. We've had people that they swear that it doesn't change the ride quality of the vehicle with the 5 PSI in it, but I can tell you I've had airbags on my own personal vehicle, and just the 5 PSI will change the ride just a little bit. It's not hardly enough to notice, but it does change it a little bit. This is what our airbags are going to look like when they're installed. They're going to mount to the bottom of our frame rail in the place of your jounce bumpers, because you're not going to need those anymore. And then it's going to mount to the top of our axle. You can obviously see here that we have a 4-inch spacer block in here, and that is because our truck does have a pretty significant lift. So we added these spacers. If your truck is lifted too, please check out our website and see what size block that you're going to need for your truck. Our airbags will come with 2 Schrader valves to manually fill up your bags from the back. It will not come with this bracket. This is a Firestone bracket that you can pick up off our website as an accessory. It works really nice to clamp onto our hitch beam here. Before we jump into the installation, there's one point that I always like to make when you're talking about getting a set of air helper springs or airbags, and that is if you don't plan on putting an onboard air compressor on your truck that's tied directly in line with these airbags, it's going to be a huge pain to add and subtract air. The only time it would not be is if you plan on towing the same trailer all the time. If you leave your house with 20 PSI in your airbags and you know you're going to pick up the same trailer that always requires 20 PSI, then that's perfectly fine. I have had a truck that has the airbags on it without the air compressor, then I had an air compressor, and then I took that air compressor off to swap for a different one, but in that time period I didn't have one on, and I can tell you it is a huge pain to have to air these up manually if you're going to pick up material, or if you're going to maybe drive to the lake to pick up your camper and you're wanting to come back with air in your airbags. So you either have to drive there with air in them or find an air source close to where you're picking your load up. So you can see where it's really, really difficult and makes you not want to use your airbags because it's such a pain to to have to air them up. If you put that onboard compressor on there, it allows you to adjust the PSI from 5 all the way up to 100, depending on what size air compressor you get. I don't recommend getting an air compressor that is any more powerful than 100 PSI. That way you know that your airbags are protected and you're not going to overinflate them. But the other feature is that none of them will go below 5 PSI, so they will always manage the air for you in your bags. Whenever I fire my truck up and whenever I fire this truck up, because it's all ignition based for your air compressor, you'll hear a little burp, and the air compressor turns on and it will fill that little bit of air that may have fluctuated overnight. So it just maintains your bags so that you don't damage them. To begin our installation, what you want to do is, we've got some custom work done here. The exhaust has been done. The spare tire has been removed because it does not match the same size as the rest of the tires on these trucks, or on this truck. But what you can do is drop your spare tire, get it out of your way. If you have any heat shields, remove those, get those out of your way. It just opens everything up to make it a lot more room so that you can work underneath here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to lift up on the back of the truck. And we do this just to give ourselves a little bit more room between the axle and the jounce bumper, or the bottom of the frame rail, really. The other thing you'll notice with this kit as we install ours is that we are installing this on a truck with a 5-inch lift kit on it. So yours is going to look a little different potentially, because we're going to be using a 4-inch spacer to go with our airbag. So just keep that in mind as we go through this installation. Our next goal here is we're going to take our perch off. Again, this is an extended perch because of the lift kit. You're probably going to have some sort of perch here. If you don't have a perch and the jounce bumper just goes straight onto the axle, then all we're going to have to do is remove the jounce bumper. But for us, we'll remove this and the jounce bumper. And we'll take a 13mm socket. You want to remove the singular bolt that is holding our jounce bumper on. In your kit, you're going to have some black flange bolts. We'll take that and we're going to thread that up in the weld nut that we just took our jounce bumper out of. And we're going to thread this up almost all the way, because the top bracket will have a key slot in it, and we'll be able to slide it over this once we get some more of it assembled. Now we can start assembling our airbag. What we want to do is you'll take one of your end caps. One side of the airbag is not going to have your air fitting, and the other side will. We'll start with this is the bottom. We'll take our plate or cap, put it like that. You want to make sure you know which side the fitting's on, so ours is on my left side here. We're going to take our spacer. This is our 4-inch spacer. We're going to set it on here. Then we can flip our assembly over. We're going to take our air fitting. We'll thread it in by hand as far as you can get it. And then we're going to take a 7/16 wrench. And wherever you start, keep track of that. We're going to do 1.5 turns. And that is how tight they want that in order for it to seal. Then we can take our top cap, slide it over. And we're doing a lot of this assembly on the ground here because you can do it up top, up inside the truck, but it is a lot more difficult. We're going to take this, set it right on top. To get our top bracket attached, you'll use those shorter bolts that come in your kit. They're just little hex bolts with fine threads. You'll put a flat washer, then a lock washer on it, and then put the bolt in place. You want to leave this loose because we'll have to be able to move it around up top when we get it in place. You also want this little opening in our bracket to line up with your air fitting. Over on our vehicle, there's a couple of things we're going to have to do in order to prep for our airbag assembly to come over here. And you want to pry this little fitting off of here. Found if you just open it up, slide it over. We'll just try to pull this up, rotate it to get it out of our way. We can pry this one off too. It'll just help to give us a little bit more mobility. Set this up out of the way because this little tab here, we are going to have to cut that off. Now what I've done here is I've just taken that wiring and zip tied it up out of the way for now to get it out of our way. We're going to take a Dremel tool and just put a small score mark in here, and we should be able to bend this tab to where it breaks right off. Next, you are going to have a 10mm bolt that is in this hole right here. This bracket may have just been for our lift kit that we got here for a drop bracket for all these hoses and stuff. So there should be just a 10mm bolt that goes through this bracket. Take that out, and that'll give us a lot more room to be able to work to get our piece up in here. We've got another 10mm bolt down here that we need to remove. Pop that out. We will not be replacing this. We get new hardware in our kit for this. Let's take our assembly and put it up into place. We'll take that hole there, or that bolt. This is that key slot I was talking about earlier. And this is exactly why we wanted to pull all those hoses out of the way. We'll take that, slide it over, and the nice part about it is that it kind of centers it up for you. So hold that there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wrench and tighten that bolt up. We'll use a 15mm wrench in order to do that. To get our lower bracket in place, what we've done is we've compressed our airbag, so you just want to push straight up on it. You can do this before we put it up into place, but I think it's going to help get this lower bracket in place. Just push up and then put a short piece of airline tubing. If you have an extra fitting, you can use that, or you just use some electrical tape, tape off the end. We're going to take our bottom bracket here. Now, we may end up having to trim more off of what we just trimmed here, but we're going to try to get it to fit first. Without having to trim any more off of that. Yeah, it looks like we are going to take off. I'm going to take off another 1/4 inch or so of that bracket, and then this lower bracket should slide right on. With that piece cut out, it slides right down into place. You want to make sure that you push it all the way to where this little notch here rests on the inside of your leaf spring bolts. Now, with that attached, we'll take our air fitting out of the top, bring this down to the bracket. We can get our hardware in place underneath there. This part can be kind of tricky to get these bolts into place, but just be patient, and you may have to twist on the bag a little bit, and we'll get these threaded in place. Now that we've got those bolts in place, we're going to just shift it forward a little bit, drop our bolt in place, because if you have it over top of the hole like we do in order to line it up correctly, because for us, that is, the airbag is straight there. That covers this hole and you can't get the bolt in place. So put that bolt in place, put the bolt on the other side. Now we can go back and tighten these 2 bolts underneath and the 2 bolts on top. Now we're going to want to put our U-bolt in place over top. We'll want to slide it down into the corresponding holes on either side. And we'll follow it up with a flange nut on each one. When you're tightening down this U-bolt, you want to be sure to do even pressure on both sides. You can see ours is at a bit of an angle. That's literally just because of this wiring harness being so thick. We are behind it, so what we're going to do is I'm going to tighten this side quite a bit, get the threads to even up on the other side, and then go back and forth. We'll take some self-tapping screws that come in your kit, get this old bracket in there, and run that down. We'll put one there and on the front side. You want to also throw on your extension bracket for your wiring. It just helps to organize everything. The little hook here, you can clip your wiring in there and know that it'll be safe when you're headed down the road. We'll take our bracket, the bracket that goes underneath our axle, slide that on. And same thing with these. When you're tightening these nuts, you want to be sure to even pressure on both sides so that we don't put too much on one. Once you get both sides completed, we're going to come back and torque everything down to the specifications and the instructions. The next step in our process is going to be running air lines from our airbags to the back of the vehicle if you're doing manual fill. We're going to be doing a compressor and manual fill, so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and run the manual fills back to the back of the truck, and then we'll come back and show you the route that I took. We've got our air lines run now. You want to start here at the back. I highly recommend picking up a little bracket like this. It's made by Firestone. We've got them on our website. Makes it really easy to attach it to the hitch tube on our truck. Just get those two Schrader valves attached, and then to run your airline, you just want to stay away from anything hot or moving. It doesn't matter how you route this. Make sure that you don't kink any of the hose. I just take the excess, loop it up here, and then I ran the passenger side down and over, and then connected it into the top of our airbag, and then essentially did the exact same thing for the driver's side. When you're running these manual lines in the back, they're super, super easy to do. It gets a little bit more complicated when you try to tee them off or when you're trying to tie the compressor in, but as far as doing these manual fills, they work out perfectly. We're going to take our air fitting here and we're going to put about 50 psi in each airbag. And this is going to help us to test out for any leaks that we might have in our fittings and in our airbags. We're just going to take some soapy water and spray it on these fittings. And what you want to look for is rapid forming large or small bubbles coming out of this seam here. If that's happening, all you need to do is pop your airline out, make a clean cut on the end of it, make sure it's not pinched at all. Using a set of airline tubing cutters will help to prevent that, or a razor blade on a flat surface. Then take your airline and stick it back in. Now that we know there are no leaks in our system, that's going to do it for the installation. Well guys, hopefully this video helped you decide whether or not the Air Lift LoadLifter 5000 airbags are right for you and your 2023 Ford F-150.